If you're a parent, you know this question. You've probably asked it 100 times, maybe even last night. Is my child getting enough sleep? It sounds so simple, right? But the answer is, well, it's a really big deal. So today, we're going to cut through all the noise and give you the real, science-backed guide to your child's sleep. Let's just dive right in with the big one. Is your child getting less sleep than they actually need? It's so easy to brush off a little grumpiness as just, kids being kids, but the latest science is telling us we need to be paying way closer attention. And here's why. Check out these numbers from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Only about half, that's 50%, of school-aged kids in the US are getting the right amount of sleep. That means the other half are sleep deficient. We're talking 1 out of every 2 kids. This isn't just a few tired children here and there. This is a massive, widespread issue. And the stakes? They are incredibly high. A huge study in a major journal, Lancet Child and Adolescent Health, dropped this absolute bombshell. This isn't just about kids being groggy. We are talking about measurable physical changes to the actual structure of their brains. And get this? These aren't changes that just vanish after a good night's rest. They can still be seen years later. So this brings us right to our first section, what we're calling a hidden sleep crisis. Because it's one thing to hear about brain changes, but let's break down what that really means for a child's everyday life. That Lancet study looked at the brains of over 8,000 kids, and the findings were just stunning. The children getting less than the recommended 9 hours of sleep, they had more depression, more anxiety, and more behavioral problems. But here's the kicker. Their brain scans showed they had smaller gray matter volume. That's like the brain's main processing center in really crucial areas. We're talking about the parts that handle attention, memory, and impulse control. So they're not just tired. Their brains are literally being shaped in a way that makes it harder to learn, to stay calm, and just, to thrive. Okay, so that's the problem, and it's a serious one. So what's the solution? How much sleep do our kids actually need to avoid all this? Well, that takes us to Section 2, the official sleep chart. And these are the numbers you're going to want to know. Now, the numbers we're about to look at, they didn't just pull them out of thin air. They're the result of a massive effort by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. A panel of 13 of the world's top sleep experts sat down and analyzed 864 different scientific studies to come up with a consensus. It just doesn't get more authoritative than this. And here they are. These are the golden numbers. Let's walk through it. For infants, you're looking at a huge range, 12 to 16 hours. Toddlers, it's 11 to 14 hours. For your little preschoolers, the sweet spot is 10 to 13 hours. Now, for school-age kids, the ones in that big study, the target is 9 to 12 hours. And for teenagers, who are so often sleep-deprived, it's 8 to 10 hours. It's pretty clear that for a lot of our kids, there's a big gap between these numbers and reality. So, why these specific numbers? Well, because hitting these targets is consistently linked to what scientists call optimal health. And this isn't just about dodging the bad stuff we saw earlier. It's about unlocking all the good stuff. We're talking better attention, better behavior, better learning, stronger memory, and a much better ability to handle their emotions. This is literally the foundation for a flourishing child. Okay, but why? Why do kids need so much more sleep than we do? To really get that, we need to understand what's happening in their brains at night. And that brings us to Section 3, a brain under construction. Here's the most important thing to remember. A kid's brain is not just a mini adult brain. Think about it this way. For an adult, sleep is mostly about repair and maintenance, like a night crew cleaning up an office building. But for a child, sleep is the main construction shift. Their brain is actively being built. That's why they spend so much more time in deep and REM sleep. That's where the heavy lifting of development happens. It's a completely different mission. And what's so fascinating is that sleep's job description actually changes as a kid gets older. For an infant, all that REM sleep is busy forming the brain's most basic wiring. Then, as a toddler, deep sleep ramps up to build the foundations for language. For a school-aged kid, it's all about cementing memories from the day and releasing growth hormone. And for a teenager, sleep is essential for building that all-important prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps them make good decisions and manage their emotions. This quote really gets to the heart of it. Basically, a child's brain creates way more connections, or synapses, than it needs. It's like a garden that gets overgrown during the day. Then, sleep comes in and acts like a master gardener. It prunes away the weaker, unnecessary connections, which makes the ones that are left stronger and much more efficient. This cleanup job is absolutely critical for building a fast, smart brain. So, we've got the numbers, we've got the science, but we all know real life with kids is, messy. It doesn't always fit into a perfect chart. And that brings us to our final section, beyond the guidelines. Which, of course, leads to the big question, right? Are these numbers the be-all and end-all? If your 4-year-old gets 9.5 hours instead of 10, is it a total disaster? And the experts are really clear on this. No, absolutely not. Think of these guidelines as a fantastic rule of thumb, a great starting point. But every single child is different. The numbers on the clock aren't the final grade. The real key is to become a detective and watch for the signs of good quality sleep in your own kid. So what are those signs? What should you be looking for? Well, first, just their general mood. Are they constantly cranky or irritable? How are things at school? Any trouble concentrating? What about mornings? Is waking them up a monumental struggle every single day? And here's a surprising one to watch for. Sometimes a lack of sleep in kids doesn't look like tiredness. It actually looks like hyperactivity. And finally, listen to them when they sleep. Frequent, loud snoring can be a red flag. The clock is a tool for sure, but your child's behavior, that's the real report card. And that really leaves us with this final thought. Instead of just asking, how many hours did my child get? Let's start asking a different question. What is my child's sleep telling me? When you start to see sleep not as a number you have to hit, but as a vital sign, just as important as their breathing or their temperature, it changes everything. It becomes one of the clearest windows you have into their overall health and well-being.